When deciding what console to buy, gamers usually come down to two deciding factors. Do they want Game Pass or PlayStation Plus? But is PlayStation Plus even worth it in 2024? Let's find out. There was a lot of discussion online in 2022 when Sony announced plans to relaunch their online services by introducing 3 tiers dubbed PlayStation Plus Essential, Extra, and Premium. Much of this discussion was driven by the news that PS Now, Sony's closest thing to an Xbox Game Pass competitor, would be shut down and effectively rebranded as part of the subscription tiers. It's been over a year and a half since the relaunch, and discussion over the value of the various tiers has reignited after Sony announced a significant price hike a few months back. While the general consensus online has been that despite the Essential and even Extra tiers having been a solid value, at least before the price hike, the same cannot be said about Premium. The Essential tier grants access to 2 online services as well as the ability to add 3 curated games each month, 2 on the PS4 and 1 on the PS5. The Extra tier also provides you with the access to a library of games to download, including major first-party titles like Horizon Forbidden West, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves Collection, Sackboy: A Big Adventure, and even a few day one third-party releases such as Stray. In addition to the perks of the Essential and Extra tiers, Premium also grants access to a library of classic titles, the ability to stream games, as well as select game trials. The problem for most gamers lies with the lack of updates for this Premium tier. A lot of Sony's marketing around the rebrand took into account the seeming lack of value in the Premium tier at launch, and strongly implied that the future growth of the classic selection over time. Despite this, a year after the launch, they've only added 21 PS1 games and 14 PSP games, with little to no PS2 or PS3 games having been added over the entire time. While there are PS2 and PS3 games offered on the service, they are mostly the same titles that have been there since launch, with the majority being holdovers from the PS Now collection. To make matters worse, the PS2 catalog is sorely lacking with only 24 titles offered. To be fair to Sony, there is a known issue with their PS2 emulator on the PS5 that causes textures to load weirdly as well as causing other games to run poorly in general. There are also concerns over the PS2 emulator's JIT privileges, which could provide access that Sony would certainly like to avoid. Despite these issues, many fans had hoped the new emulator was in the works to solve these problems. So far, there hasn't been any news on that front, leaving fans with dying hope, while some of the most beloved titles of all time stay sitting on the shelves. While this lack of added value to their most expensive subscription tier had already been a growing concern for gamers, the significant price hike quietly announced around the start of September only made matters worse. Toward the end of a monthly blog post going over the new PS Plus Essential games, the company stated that starting September 6th, the price of all 3 tiers would be increasing. Essential would go from $60 a year to $80, Extra would go from $100 a year to $135, and Premium would go from $120 to $160 a year. As a part of their push to justify the price hike, Sony attributed market conditions as well as a lack of raising prices incrementally, along with their competitors, as the main reasons for the increase. Sony Interactive Entertainment's business chief, Eric Lempel, was quoted saying, "This price adjustment will enable us to continue bringing high-quality games and value-added benefits to your PlayStation Plus subscription services." While there have been a couple of perks added over the last year, most recently access to a library of around 100 Sony movies free via the Sony Pictures Core app, most don't see that as a major selling point. After all, we have plenty of access to free shows and movies with the apps like Tubi and Pluto TV, let alone whatever paid services we have the password for. It remains to be seen how Sony will continue to address user concerns, but many are taking the opportunity to downgrade a lower tier before their current subscription ends. At the end of the day, whether or not a given tier is worth the cost for you is going to come down to your habits and needs. For most casual gamers, the Essential tier is all that is needed. It offers access to play games online with your friends and a few new games each month. The quality of the free games is sometimes even really good, with some first-party Sony games in the mix after only a couple years on the market. Now, if you're more of a hobby gamer, then the Extra tier is probably the best value at this time. You get all the same stuff as the Essential tier, but also get access to a fairly impressive library of PS4 and PS5 games. We've spent plenty of time digging into titles we had forgotten about, or just ones that sounded interesting. That's the beauty of any game subscription service, the ability to just try things out on a whim. Now, while we think the value of both the Essential and Extra tiers is solid depending on your gaming habits, the Premium is just not worth the cost for most people at this time. Even as someone who has downgraded from Premium after the price increase news, we can honestly say that we are still relatively optimistic about the future of this tier. There are just too many good classic titles that Sony can pull from. Hopefully they'll start to put more of an emphasis on their classic library, because if they give the time and care it deserves, it could be a really special collection that justifies the cost. So what do you think? Is PlayStation Plus still worth it? Let me know, leave a comment. I want to hear from you guys. And hey, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this, and to join our Discord, I will leave a link in the description. See you next time, everyone.